The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa, Passage 33. During the first days of autumn, when nightfall arrives suddenly, as if prematurely, and it seems we took longer to do our day's work, I enjoy while still working the thought of not working, which the darkness brings. For the darkness is night, and night means sleep, home, freedom. When the lights come on, dispelling darkness from the large office, and we continue our day's work in the beginning of night, I feel a comfort that's absurd, like a remembrance belonging to someone else, and I'm at peace with the numbers I write, as if I were reading while waiting to fall asleep. We're all slaves of external circumstances. A sunny day transports us from a cafe on a narrow side street to wide open fields. An overcast sky in the country makes us close up, taking shelter as best we can in the house without doors of our own self. The onset of night, even in the midst of daytime activities, enlarges, like a slow opening fan, our awareness that we ought to rest. But the work doesn't slow down, it gets livelier. We no longer work, we amuse ourselves with the labor to which we're condemned. And all of a sudden, across the huge columned sheet of my numerary destiny, the old house of my elderly aunts, shut off from the world, shelters the drowsy 10 o'clock tea. And the kerosene lamp of my lost childhood, glowing only on the linen-covered table, blinds me to the sight of Moira, illuminated by a black electricity infinities away from me. The maid, who's even older than my aunts, brings in the tea, along with the vestiges of her interrupted nap and the affectionately patient grumpiness of old-time servants. And across all my dead past, I enter items and totals without a single mistake. I retreat into myself, get lost in myself, forget myself in faraway nights uncontaminated by duty and the world, undefiled by mystery and the future. And so gentle is the sensation that estranges me from debits and credits, that if by chance I'm asked a question, I answer in a soft voice, as if my being were hollow, as if it were nothing more than a typewriter I carry around with me, portable, opened and ready. It doesn't faze me when my dreams are interrupted. They're so gentle that I keep dreaming them as I speak, write, answer, or even discuss. And through it all, the long-lost tea finishes. The office is going to close. From the ledger, which I slowly shut, I raise my eyes, sore from the tears they didn't shed. And with confused feelings, I accept, because I must, that with the closing of my office, my dream also closes. That as my hand shuts the ledger, it also pulls a veil over my irretrievable past. That I'm going to life's bed, wide awake, unaccompanied and without peace, in the ebb and flow of my confused consciousness, like two tides in the black night, where the destinies of nostalgia and desolation meet. 34. Sometimes I think I'll never leave the Rua dos Duradores, and having written this, it seems to me eternity. Not pleasure, not glory, not power, freedom, only freedom. To go from the phantoms of faith to the ghosts of reason is merely to change cells. Art, if it frees us from the abstract idols of old, should also free us from magnanimous ideas and social concerns, which are likewise idols. To find our personality by losing it, faith itself endorses this destiny. 35. And a deep and weary disdain for all those who work for mankind, for all those who fight for their country and give their lives so that civilization may continue. A disdain full of disgust for those who don't realize that the only reality is each man's soul, and that everything else, the exterior world and other people, is but an unaesthetic nightmare, like the result in dreams of a mental indigestion. My aversion to effort becomes an almost writhing horror before all forms of violent effort. War, energetic and productive labor, helping others, all this strikes me as the product of an impertinence. Everything useful and external tastes frivolous and trivial in the light of my soul's supreme reality, and next to the pure sovereign splendor of my more original and frequent dreams. These, for me, are more real. 36. It's not the cracked walls of my rented room, nor the shabby desks in the office where I work, nor the poverty of the same old downtown streets in between, which I've crossed and recrossed so many times, they seem to have assumed the immobility of the irreparable. None of that is responsible for my frequent feeling of nausea over the squalor of daily life. It's the people who habitually surround me, the souls who know me through conversation and daily contact without knowing me at all. They're the ones who cause a salivary knot of physical disgust to form in my throat. It's the sordid monotony of their lives, outwardly parallel to my own, and their keen awareness that I'm their fellow man. That is what dresses me in a convict's clothes, places me in a jail cell, and makes me apocryphal and beggarly. There are times when each detail of the ordinary interests me for its own sake, and I feel a fondness for things because I can read them clearly. Then I see, as Vieira said that Sousa, in his description, saw, the ordinary in its singularity, and I have the poetic soul that inspired the intellectual age of poetry among the Greeks. But there are also moments, such as the one that oppresses me now, when I feel my own self far more than I feel external things, and everything transforms into a night of rain and mud, where, lost in the solitude of an out-of-the-way station, I wait interminably for the next third-class train. Yes, my particular virtue of being very often objective and thus sidetracked from thinking about myself suffers lapses of affirmation, as do all virtues and even all vices. And I start to wonder how I'm able to go on, how I dare have the faint-heartedness to be here among these people exactly like them, in true conformity to their shoddy illusion. Like flashes from a distant lighthouse, I see all the solutions offered by the imagination's female side. Flight, suicide, renunciation, grandiose acts of our aristocratic self-awareness, the swashbuckling novel of existences without balconies. But the ideal Juliet of the best possible reality closed the high window of the literary encounter on the fictitious Romeo of my blood. She obeys her father, he obeys his. The feud between the Montagues and the Capulets continues. The curtain falls on what didn't happen, and I go on home to my rented room, where I loathe the landlady who isn't home. Her children I hardly ever see, and the people from the office that I'll only see tomorrow, with the collar of a clerk's coat turned up without astonishment over the neck of a poet, with my boots, always purchased in the same shop, automatically avoiding the puddles of cold rain, and with a bit of mixed concern for having once more forgotten my umbrella and the dignity of my soul. 37. Dolorous interlude. An object tossed into a corner, a rag that fell onto the road. My contemptible being feigns to the world. 38. I envy all people because I'm not them. Since this always seemed to be me, like the most impossible of all impossibilities, it's what I yearned for every day and despaired of in every sad moment. A dull blast of grim sunlight burned my eyes' physical sensation of seeing. A hot yellow languished in the black green of the trees. The torpor. 39. All of a sudden, as if a surgical hand of destiny had operated on a long-standing blindness with immediate and sensational results, I lift my gaze from my anonymous life to the clear recognition of how I live. I see that everything I've done, thought, or been is a species of delusion or madness. I'm amazed by what I managed not to see. I marvel at all that I was, and that I now see I'm not. I look at my past life as at a field lit up by the sun when it breaks through the clouds, and I note with metaphysical astonishment how my most deliberate acts, my clearest ideas, and my most logical intentions were, after all, no more than congenital drunkenness, inherent madness, and huge ignorance. I didn't even act anything out. I was the role that got acted. At most, I was the actor's motions. All that I've done, thought, or been is a series of submissions, either to a false self that I assume belonged to me because I expressed myself through it to the outside, or to a weight of circumstances that I was supposed was the air I breathed. In this moment of seeing, I suddenly find myself isolated, an exile where I'd always thought I was a citizen. At the heart of my thoughts, I wasn't I. I'm dazed by sarcastic terror of life, a despondency that exceeds the limits of my conscious being. I realize that I was all error and deviation, that I never lived, that I existed only insofar as I filled time with consciousness and thought. I feel in this moment like a man who wakes up after a slumber full of real dreams, or like a man freed by an earthquake from the dim light of the prison he'd grown used to. This sudden awareness of my true being, of this being that has always sleepily wandered between what it feels and what it sees, weighs on me like an untold sentence to serve. It's so hard to describe what I feel when I feel I really exist, and my soul is a real entity that I don't know what human words could define it. I don't know if I have a fever, as I feel I do, or if I've stopped having the fever of sleeping through life. Yes, I repeat, I'm like a traveler who suddenly finds himself in a strange town without knowing how he got there, which makes me think of those who lose their memory, and for a long time are not themselves, but someone else. I was someone else for a long time, since birth and consciousness. And suddenly, I've woken up in the middle of a bridge, leaning over the river, and knowing that I exist more solidly than the person I was up till now. But the city is unknown to me. The streets are new, and the trouble has no cure. And so, leaning over the bridge, I wait for the truth to go away, and I let me return to being fictitious and non-existent, intelligent and natural. It was just a brief moment, and it's already over. Once more, I see the furniture all around me, the pattern on the old wallpaper, and the sun through the dusty panes. I saw the truth for a moment. For a moment, I was consciously what great men are their entire lives. I recall their words and deeds and wonder if they were also successfully tempted by the demon of reality. To know nothing about yourself is to live. To know yourself badly is to think. To know yourself in a flash, as I did in this moment, is to have a fleeting notion of the intimate monad, the soul's magic word. But that sudden light scorches everything, consumes everything. It strips us naked of even ourselves. It was just a moment, and I saw myself. I can no longer even say what I was, and now I'm sleepy, because I think, I don't know why, that the meaning of it all is to sleep.